That it do pass and be printed. Members, the chair invites any member to make a comment before the vote is taken at this time. Are there any comments? Chair recognizes Representative Turner to make a comment.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. This morning is a travesty. We're here on a summer Saturday morning in a meeting announced just before midnight last night, less than 10 hours ago, to ram through a discriminatory and racially motivated congressional map to the full House of Representatives. This morning, my constituents are attending back-to-school events in Arlington and in Mansfield, getting their kids ready for a new school year and the hope and promise that the new school year brings. That's where I wanted to be this morning. Meanwhile, this committee meets here to rip apart and divide their communities, to rob them and of their kids of their voices in Congress, all to appease the Republican Party's cult leader in the White House, doubling down on our state's shameful history of intentional racial discrimination. I want to speak to the thousands of Texans who drove for hours, stood in the heat, tried to register to testify despite the obstacles. They called, emailed, submitted written testimony to express your outrage over this racist power grab. And I want to express to every Texan who did that my deep gratitude and admiration. Even though Republicans here at the legislature can't put aside their fear of disobeying Donald Trump, please note this fight is far from over, and Democrats will continue to stand shoulder to shoulder with you in this fight. What is happening here is wrong, and everybody knows it, but we will not give up. This map intentionally dismantles multiple majority-minority congressional districts in which voters have repeatedly demonstrated the ability and power to elect the candidates of their choice. To take that ability and power away is straight-up intentional racial discrimination and a violation of the Voting Rights Act of 1965. Finally, it is remarkable that the bill author and other proponents of this radical map have stated repeatedly they have no idea who drew it. You would think that when we are considering a piece of legislation that re-engineers how more than 30 million Texans will be represented at the highest levels of government, we would at least know who had their hand on the steering wheel, or in this case, the keyboard and the mouse. But we still do not know. As the proverb says, success has 1,000 fathers. Failure is an orphan. Donald Trump's HB4 is an ugly, racist orphan. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Turner. Chair recognizes Mr. Manuel to make a statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. I promise I'm going to make this short. I know yesterday and a lot of times I talk about race because it is important. But the reason this committee is so important to me, which a lot of you don't know, is what happened in 2003, what happened in '94 with redistricting, with playing political games, that affected my area. And it wasn't a predominantly all black area. It was a true coalition working class district. It was moms and dads who worked 9 to 5 who were trying to make it work. And I grew up seeing my city get to a point where it could have risen to something. And now it's in decay. And when you have people who come to a committee and say, because I'm a Democrat-run city in Beaumont, people are poor, and that wasn't what happened. We lost our representation and economic engines to larger parts of the district that had nothing in common with us. That's why I bring up the historically black and Hispanic and Latino districts, because it hurts knowing what could happen to them, because I know what happened to me. I'm very blessed that I was raised between the West Coast and the South by a dad who was in the Coast Guard for 33 years. I have not always lived my entire life in Jefferson County. I have been represented by people of all races, political backgrounds, and I will never forget my father told me, he said, why is it that we ask more of our soldiers than we do of our citizens? And what I don't understand is yesterday and the days before, we heard people who were telling you they were hurting and that they're scared. And this is the same thing that happened when Democrats didn't listen during the era of the Tea Party and we paid for that. And that's not a threat. I'm wanting you to understand, just like some of you remember what that fear felt like, you thought that big government was coming in to take over everything. That is the real fear that some people have. People who see districts like mine, who remember what it looked like and how we have never been able to get back to that. How we have literally been poor, Black, and destitute, and it has given people every reason to invoke our race, to say that we are not intelligent, that we're not smart, and it promotes racism. And that is why sometimes people say that and they don't really truly understand, but it does, it promotes racism. I'm fortunate to have a family that was in civil rights, a father who forced me to learn my own answers, but I know people my age who are in jail. People who don't even understand that we are not in a democracy, that we're in a republic. And they teach school, some of them. I understand again that politics wins the day. And I understand that everybody wants to do what they can for their political survival. But we are messing with people's lives. We have taken political resources from two historically Black districts that were represented by Black women for a very long time. And you know what? I'm gonna go off of exactly what the author of the bill said, that he didn't write it, that he used an outside legal team, a legal team that, as we've seen, has said racism is over, when we know people still are racist. We know that there is someone who submitted a map that the Supreme Court has kicked out because they saw that it was gerrymandering Black districts. I wouldn't want to do that to any of you all. And I would really hope you all would understand that I get winning, but at what cost is it okay to harm people? At what cost is it okay to say, as long as we win and we stay winning? I know all of you here, and I know that's not how you all think, but I am telling you, and I'm sorry I'm emotional, but I am telling you, there is real harm in breaking up communities of interest like this, taking away airports from people, taking away businesses that they have relied on for their representation to make sure that they do right. Even if you don't agree with DEI, just being able to make that call in your districts to say, hey, can you give this young person a chance? He really is doing good work. But when you take that out, we don't have a voice. And for sometimes those economic engines are in that district that those people need. We always say, pull yourself up by the bootstraps. But some people don't have boots. And all I'm saying is, please listen to these people's hurt. If you want to pass the bill, pass it, but please just listen to what they were saying before you pass it. We can always come back. I will come back. But please, there are people who are real life scared. And I would never wish anything on anyone for what I have seen happen to my community the entire time I grew up, because a white Republican was mad with a white Democrat and drew him out of his district because he had the respect of people of every ethnicity and background. And it was a Republican district and he consistently won. I appreciate you, Chairman. I thank you all for working with all of us. And I really hope you all will listen with your heart. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Manuel. Chair recognizes Mr. Wu to make a comment.
So for the record, in my, I think, 13 years here, I've not seen a process like this. Hiding the ball not only from the public, but from members themselves, members not only of this body, but members of this committee. For weeks, members here asked, what is the intent? What is the purpose of being here? What is the issue? What is the deal? Because the law requires us to redistrict after the census. Nothing says that you're supposed to or can in the middle of a census, in between census. We redistrict after a census because populations change and the Constitution requires us to have equal representation. What is the impetus here? We tried to ask. We said, would you bring the governor or his staff or somebody in his office who knows what is in his mind? What's the problem? What is the issue we're solving? We know that for every other topic except this. It's almost like it was intentionally hidden. We know that the governor's intent is based off of Donald Trump's orders and Donald Trump's letter from the DOJ, who, by the way, is probably in violation of the Hatch Act for conducting politics from a federal office. But that's not the point. The point is we know where this came from. We know what sparked it. We know what the impetus is. But yet here the committee, the chair, refused to inquire why. Just, we'll send an email. If it bounces, who cares? Could we bring somebody? Could we ask them? Did you call? Did we call anybody from the governor's office? I asked repeatedly in this committee, hey, have you talked to the governor? Have you talked to somebody in his office? Maybe you should find out what his intention is. And through all those weeks, all those opportunities, all that time, nope. I bet today we asked the chair, hey, have you talked to the governor about what he wants? Why he made this call? You know the answer is no. Of course not. Because that's the point. The point is to hide from the public. The point is to hide from the membership. The point is to hide from the court. To do as much in secret and in the dark as possible. And that is the legacy of this body. To take our democracy and to shove it in the back closet and do whatever you want. This is not just an attack on Democrats. Democrats have said repeatedly, especially the members of Congress who came here, who have spoken publicly, have said repeatedly they don't care if they come back or not. But what's important are those communities. Those communities should be allowed to pick the person of their choice. I'm sorry that person is not you. But they have made their choice. These communities who have suffered together through the ages, communities that get special treatment because this body has intentionally discriminated against them for centuries. Since the founding of this state, the people in these communities have been treated not even as second-class citizens, treated as animals, treated as slaves, treated as indentured servants and whatever else. People to be seen, to people to neither be seen, not heard, nor heard, but just go do your little jobs, serve us. The moment you gain power, the moment you gain representation, is the moment they'll snatch it from you to put you back in your place. That's not the America that I believe in. The America I believe in, the America I was taught growing up, is a place that welcomes competition, welcomes the challenge of ideas, welcomes people of all places to share in their vision and to hear all their voices. I know that's not something that we've always lived up to, but we have strived for it. This action, this body, does not move us forward. It takes us very far back.
Members, any other comments? Chair recognizes Vice Chair Rosenthal to make a comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This body is now demonstrating yet again why the Voting Rights Act was so important. And it seems like leadership in Texas cannot wait to jump on the opportunity to strip people of their rights. So when the Supreme Court nullifies a provision of the Voting Rights Act that requires this state in particular to pre-clear election laws, the state cannot wait to pass draconian restrictions to make it the hardest, the most difficult state in the union to register and cast a ballot is the state of Texas. And that set of laws was enacted after the Supreme Court struck down that provision of the Voting Rights Act. And now we have just seen this state's response to the courts weakening another provision of the Voting Rights Act, where these districts that are majority minority, that allows those communities to elect a candidate of their choice, can now be dismantled solely on the basis of race, or at least that's what the Department of Justice letter instructing the governor, that's what that letter told the governor to do. And the governor could not wait to do that. And this body has been complicit in complying with the order of the president to deliver 5 new seats. And the governor's justification is, well, just because those type of districts are no longer explicitly protected, we have our, that's all the motivation that we need to dismantle them. So the people of Texas spoke. They came out in overwhelming numbers to these hearings. They submitted thousands and thousands of testimonials online, and we saw that 1.2% of the responses were in favor, while 98.8% were opposed. To assert that the people of Texas want this is strains credulity. It's unbelievable. I think even conservative, true, conscientious conservative Texans know this is a racist attack on black and brown communities. And I won't stand for it. We will continue to fight this with everything we have. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Vice Chair. Members, any other comments? Chair recognizes Speaker Booty.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate that. Members, I spent all of Thursday at a hearing in Kerrville. What happened there was devastating. We heard from a mother who identified the body of her baby girl by her charm bracelets. People who clung to trees for hours while homes and cars were swept away around them. Parents have been burying their babies. People have lost everything, truly everything. That was only the second public hearing on flood relief. We spent so much more time on this mid-decade redistricting. And I initially have written here that I wanted to tell you how sad that made me, but quite honestly, it pisses me off. You know, there's a nonprofit right now that is trying to reconnect kids with their stuffed animals. And in a lot of cases, connect parents with the stuffed animals that maybe were the last things that gave their kids comfort. That's the kind of digging in and love and compassion people are showing around this state. And yet here we are. We were told these maps had to be redrawn, that it was a constitutional problem until yesterday. Yesterday we heard that these crazy looking maps with crack packed and jack districts were drawn for political performance to keep some votes from mattering. The felon in chief said, "Get me 5 seats," and so here we are. That shameless admission was made to cover up that they are drawn along racial lines. The DOJ letter proves that. And let me be very clear. I'm not saying any member sitting here with me is a racist. I never would, not at all. I don't know what's in everyone's hearts or in their minds. What I am looking at is the effect of what this does. Congresswoman Crockett mentioned the 3/5 compromise. At the dawn of America, a black person was worth 3/5 of a white one. The effect of these maps is that now a black person is worth only 1/5. I guess I should feel lucky because people who look like me are worth at least 1/3. We are truly doing worse in 2025 Austin than in 1787 Philadelphia. And it's not just votes. Politicians want to choose their voters and rob the rest. These lines snake into districts to grab airports and industry and medical centers. These maps steal the economic engines that we built. And we're supposed to be grateful for that. We didn't have to have this hearing. It was given to us. Scraps. We shouldn't be here. We shouldn't be doing this at all. Across all hearings, people were almost 100-1 against it. On social media, that's called getting ratioed. Where we should be is back in Kerrville helping people. That's the kind of thing we run for office to do. Not this. This is politics over people in the grossest way possible. Just power grab, and I feel sick in my soul that we have stooped this low. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, any other comments? Chair has none. The question occurs on the motion to report House Bill 4 without amendments with the recommendation that it do pass and be printed. The clerk will call the roll.
Chair Pursuit.
Aye.
Vice Chair Rosenthal.
Nay.
Representative Garcia. Representative Guerin. Representative Gervin Hawkins. Representative Guerra. Representative Guillen. Representative Hefner. Representative Hickland. Representative Hunter. Representative Manuel. Representative McQueenie. Representative Metcalf. Representative Moody. Representative Pearson. Representative Spiller. Representative Tepper. Representative Thompson. Representative Turner. Representative Wilson. Representative Wu.
There being 12 ayes, 6 nays, and 0 present not voting, the motion prevails. There being no further business for the committee, the chair moves to adjourn, subject to the call of the chair. Is there objection? The chair has none, and the House Select Committee on Congressional Redistricting stands adjourned, subject to the call of the chair at 9:27 a.m.